At some point, you stopped letting people see all of you. Not because you had something to hide, not because you were dishonest, but because you had learned, slowly, through many small moments, that showing the full version of yourself came with a cost. You weren't always willing to pay. And so you kept things, opinions you never voiced, feelings you never expressed, parts of yourself you carried quietly, shown to no one or almost no one, because experience had taught you that bringing them out was rarely worth the risk. This is about how that happened, and what it means to spend years being known only partially. Authenticity is often talked about as a choice, as something you decide to be real, to be vulnerable, to show up as yourself regardless of how it lands. But for many people, authenticity was never simply a choice. It was a risk calculation, a constant, mostly unconscious assessment. Is this safe to say? Will this be welcomed or dismissed? If I show this part of myself, what will it cost me? And when the answer, again and again, in room after room, was that the cost was too high, the choice to be authentic quietly stopped feeling like a choice at all. It started feeling like a luxury they couldn't afford. It didn't start with one large rejection. It started with small ones. The moment you shared an opinion and felt the room shift. Not dramatically, not with cruelty, just the slight cooling of energy around you that told you this was not what was wanted here. The moment you expressed a feeling and someone responded with impatience or dismissal or a redirection so swift, it was clear your feeling was an inconvenience rather than something worth attending to. The moment you showed enthusiasm about something that mattered to you and watched it land in silence, not mockery, just not indifference, the particular kind of indifference that communicates, without words, that what you care about is not something other people are going to care about with you. And each of those moments left a small mark, not a wound exactly, more like a note, a quiet record of what happened when you brought yourself fully. And what the record said, accumulated over time, was this: the full version of you creates friction. The edited version goes more smoothly. You never decided to stop showing people who you were. The decision made itself the way most important decisions do, in the accumulation of small adjustments that each seemed reasonable in isolation. You stopped sharing certain opinions because they had been dismissed enough times that sharing them felt more exhausting than worthwhile. You stopped expressing certain feelings because the responses they generated were more painful than the feelings themselves. You stopped bringing up the things that mattered most to you, your real interests, your actual fears, the parts of your inner life that felt most essentially yours, because the gap between how much those things mattered to you and how little they seemed to matter to the people around you was a gap that hurt every time you crossed it. So you stopped crossing it. Not forever, not as a permanent decision, just for now, just until it felt safer. Except safer never quite arrived, and for now became a very long time. When you stopped showing people who you really were, you didn't stop being that person. You kept them. The opinions you never voiced, you still had them. The feelings you never expressed, you still felt them. The parts of yourself you decided were too risky to bring out, they didn't disappear. They went somewhere quieter, into the part of you that you carried alone. And you became two people. The one others knew, edited, calibrated, carefully positioned to create minimum friction and maximum acceptance. And the one you knew, the full version, the real one, the one with all the inconvenient parts still attached. And the distance between those two people grew over time, not dramatically, just and gradually in the way all distances grow when nothing is done to close them. Until one day the distance felt so normal that you stopped noticing it, and being partially known started to feel like the only kind of known that was available to you. The cost of not showing people who you really were is not obvious. Because from the outside, you were present. You showed up. You participated. You were warm, reliable there. But from the inside, there was a loneliness that didn't make sense on paper. A loneliness in the middle of connection. The particular ache of being in a room full of people who cared about you, and knowing that what they cared about was not quite all of you. And over time, you lost practice at being fully yourself. The parts of you that never got aired became harder to access. The feelings you never expressed became harder to identify. The opinions you never voiced became harder to hear even in your own head. Because the things we never use don't stay sharp forever. And the parts of ourselves we learn to keep hidden can begin, over time, to feel hidden even from ourselves. Here is what never changed. The full version of you, the one with all the inconvenient parts, all the opinions and feelings and needs that didn't always make things easier, was never the wrong version. It was just the version that required more from people. More patience, more genuine curiosity, more willingness to sit with something that didn't immediately resolve into comfort. And not everyone had that. Not every room was equipped for it. Not every relationship had enough space to hold everything you were. But that is not evidence that you were too much. It is evidence that you were in rooms that were too small. And the full version of you, the one you have been carrying so carefully, so quietly for so long, has been waiting. Not with impatience, not with accusation, just waiting for a room large enough to hold it. If you have spent years letting people know only part of you, I want to say something that might take time to believe. The parts you kept hidden were not the parts that needed hiding. They were the parts that needed the right audience, the right room, the right kind of attention, curious rather than dismissive, patient rather than rushed, genuinely interested in who you were rather than in who you were when you were easiest. And maybe, slowly in small moments, you are finding those rooms, those people, those conversations where bringing yourself fully doesn't feel like a risk but like a relief. You don't have to show everything to everyone. That was never the point. The point is knowing that you have something to show, that the full version of you is worth showing, that the parts you have carried alone for so long deserve, at least sometimes, to be seen.